And I think it's totally cool also to not like all areas of technology. It's awesome to be excited, but you also don't have to be excited about everything.
I feel like most people are like looking to support each other, looking to encourage people.
Thinking of your next job, but really aiming for the one after.
Hello and welcome to Real Talk, a monthly show by Rewriting the Code and myself, Mayuko. In each episode, we invite you, people from all across the RTC community, to join us and have real conversations about helping women into the tech career of their dreams. Each episode will premiere live on the RTC YouTube channel, and so make sure to subscribe and interact with us in the premiere live chat, and comment down below your thoughts on today's topic as you're watching the show. The theme of today's episode is finding your place in technology, specifically choosing which part of the industry to go into. Do you become a software engineer or a product manager? Do you choose to go to a big tech company or a startup? What about fintech versus edtech versus medtech versus consumer tech? And what about all the different tech hubs around the world these days? Needless to say, there's a lot of decisions to make in a career in technology. So today, myself and our guests are going to share with you our thoughts, challenges, and worries around today's topic. So at the beginning of each episode, we'll hear from students in the RTC community. We'll learn about how they got into technology, what's on their mind, and their thoughts about today's theme. Today's guests are Anna Quinlan and Ifechi Ilizor.
My name's Anna, and I'm a junior studying computer science at Stanford.
I'm Ifechi Ilizor. I'm a senior at Brown University studying applied math and computer science, and I'll be working at Salesforce after graduation as an APM. I didn't expect to be into tech or computer science at all in high school. I applied to basically every college as either a business or econ major with pre-med as a final thing. Clearly did none of those paths. I decided to take our intro course. It's called CS15 here. Basically, you program a lot of games. I was like, okay, this sounds fun. Always thought computer science was something way too big brained. I was like, this is just not my path. And when I first started, it was so hard. I remember specifically there was this one project that was 20 lines of code, but it took me 4 hours to do. I'd heard about the final project being around 2,000 lines. And I was like, well, if it took me 24 hours, I was like, there's not enough time. So I was freaking out. But I was able to set up a remote workspace. So once I got that set up, it was nice to work in my own space. And suddenly I was just able to get over this learning curve, and it was really exciting. I remember it was building Fruit Ninja. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. I was the time to code ratio is going down. It kind of just kept on improving. I felt like I was absorbing the material more. I think it maybe just took some time for me to get into that more computer science mindset that's very analytical, a little bit putting together a puzzle. And I overall really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I thought I learned a lot. Basically, once I took that class, I was like, I'm gonna continue.
I had not considered really CS realistically. I've always been involved in kind of the diabetes community. There were kind of two things that happened. I was doing research at this lab in Maine. What was upcoming was they were gonna have a lot of data that they needed to analyze. So I was thinking the lab might need someone if I wanted to come back next summer. It would be really useful if I learned how to code. And at the same time, someone I knew started using this open source diabetes technology that could automatically dose her insulin, which made it so she could sleep at night. So I think for me, those two things really got me thinking, maybe I should try this coding thing. I had taken APCS in high school, but I wasn't really sure, is computer science for me? And then I took my first data structures class here at Stanford, and it was just a really well taught class. I loved how everything fit together. It was kind of all of the things I liked about biology, where you have the small scale things, see the bigger impact, but then you can make things really fast and make it so that the things that you're working on are going to people. With biology, you can have so much impact, but the time takes longer. And I think I really like with computer science how the kind of like the process of like it's in my head to like people are able to use it can be quicker.
Yeah, so currently I'm going to work in PM full time. I did a PM internship this summer and really enjoyed it. Between my internship experiences, I felt like I enjoyed the PM one more, but that was like for a multitude of reasons. Like I really liked one in PM, like being able to interact more with people. I also really liked the amount of different, I guess, areas you got to touch on because you interface with like design and engineering and business, sales, like whatever you want to call it, which I think is pretty cool. You're able to, again, like meet different people and learn new things. I think another one also would be you work at a little bit higher of a level, like you're looking more long term and like outlining a strategy and roadmap, which is something I've always really liked. You do that in SWE as well. I think it just depends maybe on the project, the team you're working on, also of course your seniority.
For me, it was a very gradual process. If I'm being perfectly honest, I was pretty intimidated by the tech field, and there are still certain aspects that are definitely very intimidating. So it started with, oh, maybe I want to use this in my research. Then it was like, oh, maybe I'll take a class in it. And then when I took that class, I found that I really liked it and decided at least like, hey, even if I want to go to medical school, getting a degree in computer science, I really want to like understand the fundamental like computational concepts. That's going to be something I can use regardless of where I go in the future. I went from research to like medicine. I had always had interest in those areas, thinking maybe I wanted to be a clinician, but then I ended up taking a quarter off last year to intern at Apple in their video apps department. And then I ended up interning at Microsoft in their Azure group. Because both of those weren't health related, I think those experiences really helped me solidify that I want to pursue a career in technology and I want to be the person at the table with the technical background, regardless of like the problem that I'm working on. If I'm being perfectly honest, if I had like made that straight leap, I would have been just like really intimidated, and it kind of having it happen very gradually made it so that by the time I was like, oh yeah, like this is something I think I want to like pursue as like a career, I had enough experience and knew that I liked it enough to be like, okay, like things aren't necessarily always going to be easy, but I know that like the end result is something that I'm really excited about. You can't figure out like what the right pair of shoes is until like you try a few of them on. Trying out different areas of computer science is really important, but it can also be hard, right? Because a lot of internships oftentimes are looking for people that are like, they want someone with prior experience, or like there's certain things that they may want. And I think one other piece of advice I would probably provide, like in relation to the other one I just gave, is I think research is a great way to get exposed to different areas of computer science in a way that's probably a little bit more low stakes than doing an internship. So like my research mentor, for example, has been really supportive of me like trying out data science, trying out like more like mobile development, trying out software engineering, and then also trying out like artificial intelligence. And through trying all of those things, I was able to realize like, oh, these are the things that like give me a lot of energy. I'm excited by them. I really like working on them, versus, oh, these are things that like I think are cool. I like the applications, but I don't think I want it to be my job. And I think it's totally cool also to not like all areas of technology. I think there sometimes can be a focus on like, you have to be super passionate. It's awesome to be excited, but you also don't have to be excited about everything. I think for me, I realized that I really, really enjoy like mobile development and thinking about like what you build for people. And I found that because of like research and getting involved in open source.
For sure, talking to people, that's always so helpful, especially for freshmen and sophomores. There are gonna usually be tons of mentorship programs at your school. If you're at a school with fewer resources, things online, for example, rewriting the code. I participate in Built by Girls, which matches you with mentors in the industry, which I think is also really helpful because you see things in full time. I still do think undergraduate, graduate mentors are also really helpful because they're in school. There are a lot of clubs that have mentorship programs. Like at Brown, we have like a Women Computer Science mentorship program, a Mosaic Plus membership program for underrepresented big groups in CS. So I was able to meet with upperclassmen and like pick their brains about like courses and like what they were thinking about, like their internships, which is so helpful. I feel like learning from peers who are a little bit older than you is super useful, especially if they're like in the same position, same school, because you can really relate to them. I'm definitely the type of person who thinks like reaching out can be very awkward. So if there's like a mentorship program where you can get matched a little bit more tailored, cold outreach on like LinkedIn can sometimes be helpful, going to club events.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's partially just like a very unknown process. Like, I think it's something where I'm really lucky. Like, I know some people that are like a few years ahead of me or who are going through it right now, who I'm probably going to be able to talk to. But I think it's definitely weird to think about like graduating college, going into the real world, and then also making that work with like all of the other relationships and people that I have in my life, especially when you think about it. It's like, if your friends aren't necessarily like moving to the Bay Area or, you know, moving to wherever you are, it's like, how do you stay connected with people? You know, how do you make sure that like you're making time for family and also like balancing that with work and other things? I mean, I think that from the new grads that I've had the opportunity to talk to, it seems like they've definitely been able to make it work. So like, I think it's also exciting, but you know, there's a lot of things that come with adulting. It's like, how do you need like that rental insurance for your apartment, you know, like those kinds of things.
Imposter syndrome. I'm always worried about whether I'll be good enough. And I'm like, okay, I know I have this position that I'm going to go into. Like, will I be good enough at it? Will I progress? Will I fall behind? So that's kind of just a general concern, like wondering whether I'll be enough, whether I'll be good at things. So mainly worried about my own performance. Even further than that is thinking about maybe what to do like after, how I'll like build my network and like keep those relationships, because that's something I'm realizing takes so much time.
I think the best advice I've gotten is like not counting yourself out for opportunities before you've actually applied or reached out. Like, I think for me, I've been really lucky to have people who've kind of like encouraged me when I was like, I'm thinking about doing this, but I'm not really sure I should be, or that I'm remotely qualified, but who told me like, no, like you should go for this. Having people in your life that will tell you to do that and who like make you feel like supportive.
Knowing the value of being vulnerable, it's not a weakness. I mean, don't overshare. like don't overshare in the way that would make you uncomfortable. But being vulnerable, like when you're struggling or when like something's wrong, like you can be candid and be honest. One, you'll probably be able to connect with people because I feel like most people share the same struggles. Or like, let's say they're not, they can usually like help uplift you, encourage you. I feel like most people out there are like looking to support each other, looking to encourage people.
Alright, so today's topic is about finding your place in the tech industry. It's a really common topic when you're just about to graduate college these days, since there are more areas of technology to get into than ever before. And this will probably be true of every year thereafter. Almost like deciding where to go to college, it's like figuring out which starting line you want to stand at as you enter post-grad life. It can kind of feel like you have to make the first right move because it can make a difference in the rest of your journey. But I don't think that has to be the case. I've heard before that career journeys are like ladders, where you're climbing one rung at a time towards some penultimate apex or like peak of a tech career. But I remember early in my career when I heard that analogy, it kind of felt limiting. Like the only way was up or down, and jumping across different ladders, like changing technologies or companies, was risky and had the risk of falling. But then I came across this other, slightly more forgiving analogy. Former Fortune magazine editor Patty Sellers says to consider that careers are a jungle gym, not a ladder. Sheryl Sandberg also mentioned this in her book Lean In, and explained that jungle gyms can offer more creative exploration, especially at a time where career journeys are just not nearly as linear as they once were. It makes a lot of sense to think about it this way, because after all, the tech industry is also always adapting to the state of the world. I really took this to heart early on, and it helped lift the pressure that I needed to find the perfect starting point in the industry. Thinking about my career as a jungle gym enabled me instead to focus on things like gradually building skills and staying flexible with changes, and to take my mind off of making the right choice. Because here's what I think. Real talk, There isn't one right path when it comes to leading a career in technology. A lot of people that I worked with throughout my career started in completely different fields and somehow found their way to being a software engineer, product manager, data scientist, company leader, company exec, etc. I mean, let's be real, I had no idea that I would become a YouTuber when I was graduating from UCSD with my bachelor's in computer science. Everyone's got their own journey in their career, and I know that in the beginning it can be really scary because there's a lot of unknowns and you don't know how things are going to unfold. But consider this. In times of uncertainty, when you have a blank book before you of what comes next, it's the best time ever to explore and try out new things to figure out what to write in those blank pages. A lot of people in technology take the time to try out different roles, different companies, different cities to live in, and evaluate at each stage whether it vibes with them or not. And realistically, a career is long. The average retirement age in the United States in 2022 is 62. So if you enter the industry at 22, you have a 40-year career, which is a really long time to explore and experiment and learn what you like and don't like. So, what are the best ways to figure out what you want to do? Well, to add on to Anna and Ifechi's advice, I think the best way is to do your research and get your feet wet. When doing your research, you can look at books, articles, videos, watch documentaries, and utilize what information is available to you through the internet, the library, and your school to gather more information. You can also talk to the people who are doing the thing that you're interested in to hear about their experiences and their perspectives. You can even shadow them for a day or a week to get a sense of what their day-to-day looks like, learn what skills are necessary, and how they got to where they are. And you know what? RTC is a great community to allow you to connect with people in the industry, along with any resources that your school or other coding organizations offer too. And honestly, when you ask someone for this help, the worst they can say is no, and the best they can say is yes, and it helps you get clarity on your career path. And as Anna pointed out, try things out and get your feet wet. The research phase is a great way to get a pulse check and shop around, but sometimes you don't know how you feel about something until you try it. So whether that be internships, research opportunities, hackathons, personal projects, or whatever, all of these things are to help you do some role playing to be more realistic about whether this thing is for you. I say all of this because at the end of the day, you are in the driver's seat for your own career. There are always going to be external pressures, whether from parents or peers or whatever else is going on in the world, but you're the one making decisions about what your future will be. It's part of your journey as a human being on this planet today to explore what the world can offer to you. And it's up to you to both witness what's possible and to write your own life story. In our next part, we invite someone from the RTC community on the industry side to give you some insight into what's going on in their world. We'll also find out about their journey into technology, their thoughts about today's topic, and advice they have for anyone following their footsteps. Today, our guest is Effie.
My name is Effie. I am a managing director at 2 Sigma, overseeing the training reliability organization, as well as the reliability engineering tooling and platforms. You know, maybe in hindsight, I think I got into technology, I don't want to say by accident, because I don't believe that things just happen accidentally, but I was not intending to end up as a technologist. When I actually made the pivot into what ended up being technology and technology on Wall Street, I was actually aiming to go and work for Pixar and being an animator. Always had that sense of how amazing it would be to try something bigger than anything I could possibly imagine. So I knew that I wanted to break out of whatever molds maybe even my family and my surrounding, my environment set for me. I never actually thought in my wildest dreams that I was gonna land in finance and technology. It wasn't even a decision. It was almost an evolution. There was no one moment where I said, Pixar yesterday and New York Stock Exchange tomorrow. All of a sudden, I just realized that there was so much I did not know, so many things I preconceived or assumed or stumbled upon, and I got so excited. It never really registered to me that it was A versus B as much as maybe I was meant to go in the B direction all along. I just didn't even realize it. So it's another way of saying that I think I kept a really open mind, and I was really surprised by what I found. And in many ways, it led me to develop more of a journey in my career rather than setting goals and aiming at them, because you can set goals and many times you'll get them, but there'll be times in your careers where you make a pivot and you just don't know where you're going to end. And that actually becomes the thing that transforms your career. Truth be told, I'm extremely structured and very much a person that knows what I'll be doing 10 steps ahead. The only difference today, Effie today than Effie at the beginning of my career, is that today I know that I can think 10 steps ahead, but I need to have 5 or 6 options that have 10 steps ahead. There is really never one answer, but if you can have plan A, plan B, plan C, and really play them out, it really gives you a lot more confidence. It makes you realize that perhaps sometimes the fear of changing or the fear of making a decision is not that scary. You'd find that actually option A and option B are great. They both may have very different consequences, but both of them are not tracks that you stumbled upon, but actually tracks that you planned in some way. So while it may seem like as though we're making pivotal decisions, we're not. We're actually offering a number of options. All of them are valid, and none of them are going to be, binary as in pass fail. And that's beautiful. What I found that worked the best for me and for oftentimes my colleagues is not just thinking of your next job, but really aiming for the one after. Because what you'll be doing next is truly the stepping stone towards what comes after. So if we take an example of, I want to make more money, you can go right now and find yourself a job that's going to pay a whole lot, but it may not be the job that you love. You may have to work many, many hours. You may have to sacrifice your personal life. You may have to sacrifice many other things that otherwise you wouldn't have considered. However, if you were to take the next job and become a specialist in something, be really good at something that you know is something that everybody in the industry wants right now and for the foreseeable future. That's going to land you the next job that's going to have the proper pay, that will also probably come with a decent work-life balance, that will have a lot more of those features, if you will, that are otherwise hard to get when really it's what I want to get right here and now. So definitely think 2 steps at a minimum. And obviously, as your career evolves, you can think perhaps in more complex forms, but 2 steps will give you exactly what you want.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk. Share with others what you learned, resonated with, maybe something you were surprised about on social media by tagging us at Rewriting the Code and using the hashtag RTCRealTalk. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to get next month's episode. And if you'd like to learn more about Rewriting the Code, which empowers the next generation of college women to be leaders, then go to rewritingthecode.org. My name's Mayuko, and I'll see you next time. Bye!